Hello, everyone, and welcome to my poster, which is on DataX Bio, a project that we put together that was an extended reality exploration of spatial datasets to introduce pre and early college students to computational biology. I'm going to start with the motivation for this project. We were really interested in engaging younger students in computational biology because we know that this will expand their opportunity to prepare for further education and careers. Computational biology is an interdisciplinary field. It requires some background in biology and some background in a quantitative field, maybe data science, maybe computer science, maybe something else. And so in order for students to be ready for majors in this field, maybe even graduate study in this field, internships and jobs, it's helpful for them to start earlier so they can actually build this broader foundation of knowledge to prepare themselves for success. High school would be an ideal place to start, but we know from prior studies that high school students have limited awareness of computational biology and the careers in this field. But studies have also shown that doing outreach activities can actually improve student attitudes towards the field. Sometimes there's a misconception that the computational nature will make it inaccessible to high school students, but in fact, it makes them more engaged. However, high schools often lack the resources to do computing-intensive activities, which is often what bioinformatics outreach involves. So our goal was to design an interactive experience for high school students to explore biological data and cultivate interest in computational biology careers. Keeping in mind this audience of high school students and also early college students, we look to the literature for key features of effective learning experiences. One key feature is that it's inquiry-based, that the students are actually investigating a question and going through the research process. In this case, we decided to focus on a patient's disease. We want to make sure that whatever we made was linked to school curriculum, that we were actually following content that matched what students may have seen already so that they feel like they have prior knowledge they can activate. And in particular, for biology, we looked to the state standards for high school biology. We wanted the content to feel familiar, so we focused on a familiar disease and used a familiar interface that students may have engaged with in the context of gaming. And finally, we wanted this to be accessible. We didn't want coding or computer science knowledge to be a barrier, so we instead leveraged publicly available data sets and interactive data browsers on the internet rather than requiring any coding. So the program we put together was called DataX Bio. And in this program, we used extended reality headsets to explore spatial biology data. I'll walk you through a map of what we did in each session. The session started with students being presented with a mock patient who had signs of melanoma. Students started to brainstorm a little bit what might be going on, and the instructors began to introduce key molecular biology terms. Some things the students already knew, like cells, data, DNA, and cancer, but also some things they may not have known, such as the cell types in cancer. With this shared group of information, then students were able to actually explore on their own using extended reality headsets to look for key cell types in melanoma CySIF data. This is spatial single-cell protein data, where proteins were stained using various antibodies and visualized in 3 dimensions. This MetaQuest headsets that we used for this particular session allowed students to actually see the tissue hovering in the space in front of them, where they could actually reach out, touch it, grab it, move it, reorient it, which gave a little bit more of an interactive feel to the activity. After this, the instructors introduced the idea of cell-cell interactions and how they might be relevant to diagnosing or treating melanoma. For example, immune cells attacking cancer or cancer evading immune cells. With this additional step, students then broke off into small groups where they could work together to find these interactions in the melanoma CySIF data. While one student would wear the MetaQuest headset and explore in space, all the other students could still be engaged through a web browser where they could see what the student with the headset was seeing, and they could in fact modify which proteins were visible and what color they were and how bright they were. And so through this activity, students were able to see the immune interactions in melanoma and then come together as a full class to discuss how this might motivate treatments for the patient, ultimately with the goal of arriving at the idea of immunotherapy. One student solved this diagnostic and therapeutic problem, Then the instructors took a step back to actually point out all the ways in which computational biology careers would be involved in diagnosing and treating a patient like this. People like data analysts, web developers to build browsers, database engineers at hospitals to collect and store clinical data. And for these jobs, the instructors introduced what kind of training might be needed and what the different possible paths could be, whether through biology, computer science, graduate education, undergraduate education. And to help students have something to think about after the session, they received a handout and a link to a website with further career and education related resources in this space. So this was the overview of the session, and we actually ran it for a group of 17 Boston area high school students in grades 10 through 12 who indicated an interest in health professions. These students came for the session, which they participated in for 1.5 hours, and they filled out a survey before and after the session. Based on what they reported, we could actually see how their attitudes and how their interest in computational biology changed. Before the session, very few of them actually knew what computational biology was to the level where they could explain it to someone else. Most of them were unfamiliar. But after the session, we saw that even some of the students who started off unfamiliar became interested in studying computational biology in college, and other students became even more interested in studying it. We also see a similar growth when we look at computational biology careers, which again, more students became interested in after the session. So based on what we saw in this experience, we conclude that extended reality headsets and specialized data browsers can be really useful tools to build these interactive computational biology experiences that don't require any actual coding or high-intensity computing resources. This DataX Bio program that we put together uses a mock patient scenario alongside real spatial biology data sets to really engage high school students in an investigation that uses computational biology. The only required technology here were the laptops and the internet connection. The extended reality headsets were actually optional, and we were able to provide those ourselves and borrow them from our institution. Some high school students who participated in this session actually became more interested in studying computational biology in college or pursuing careers in this space. And we hope that all the resources we provided during the session and after can help them on that journey. If you have questions, feel free to email me, and we also have a website for this program. Thank you for your time.